Print for Pay Hotel members and anybody else who's going to tune into this. Today we're here with Renitia, and Renitia is with Duplicator Sales and Service. And Renitia, how are you today?
I am just awesome. It's August. It's like 104 degrees. What more could you ask for?
Got the same thing going on here in Jersey also. So I was, can you take a couple of minutes and maybe tell our members a little bit about yourself and your expertise in the industry?
Well, I've been in the industry for quite a while. I came to, currently I'm with Duplicator Sales and Service in Louisville, Kentucky. I came here in 1994. Before that, I was with Gestetner Corporation for about a year. And prior to that, I lived in Canada and was with Seven Canada for about 4 years. So since I've been with Duplicator, I started out as a leasing specialist and got the opportunity to move over into sales, selling either duplicators or wide formats, and I chose the wide format product. And then it's kind of just kept on from there. Now I have a dedicated territory, but I'm also still the wide format product specialist.
That's awesome. And wide format has been very, very good to us over the years, right?
Yes, it has. And we primarily have only dealt with Ricoh wide format. We were an HP reseller for a short time, and then that got really difficult to be able to support our end users being a reseller. But we recently picked up the Epson product line, and so far I'm very impressed with everything I've seen from Epson.
Right. Yeah, we've picked up the Epson line too. And we actually even went a step further and we picked up the KIP line.
That's interesting. I don't see a lot of KIP in my area. There are a few machines, but it's not an abundance of units, of KIP units in this area.
Right. Well, we picked it up because, as you're probably seeing, we're not sure if when there's going to be some new products coming out of our traditional supplier.
Exactly. You know, being a Ricoh dealer for as long as we have, I went to Georgia for the training back eons ago, and they've really just not put any effort into refreshing those products for about the last 15 years. I mean, it's been very slow to come to market with any changes.
Right. Usually, I know we're going on with the current devices, we're going on almost 6 years now.
I know. It's kind of embarrassing when you're at the end of a lease term and you can't present anything new.
Absolutely. But we find a way, right?
Exactly. We just keep rolling.
So besides Ricoh, is there any Ricoh and Epson? Are there any other lines you represent?
We also carry Lexmark products,
okay,
and the Riso duplicators.
Okay, the colors, or are you doing much with duplicators anymore?
No, and we really haven't picked up the color part of the Riso lineup. It's kind of like with the Epson workforce. It's just like the duplicator. That market is such a narrow opportunity. We've got it if we need it for our school systems, but we're not moving a lot of them. So,
right, yeah, I hear you. So where do you focus your business on? Is it sales? Is it majors, SMB, production? I know you said wide format. So other than wide format, do you get into any of the other areas?
I do primarily probably the SMBs, but if there's a production opportunity that pops up, our reps here, we work by dedicated territory or zip codes. So we're pretty well able to sell the full product lineup in our area or territory. So it just depends on which area you're in, whether or not there's a lot of production opportunities. Typically, there's always the AEC market for wide format, regardless of where you're at. But for the most part, it's a lot of B, C level accounts.
Right. So how about managed IT, content backup? Are you doing any of that?
We've got a dedicated group that is doing that, and we've been doing that for about 5 years now. We probably, I believe, had about 30 accounts that we're doing the full network management of those accounts.
Right.
So it's kind of like, I think you've mentioned in the past on some of these that I've watched is, when you get into those situations, you've got a team that can back you up and help you be able to support whatever that opportunity needs.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, we I like to say I know print, but when it comes to IT services, sometimes, I mean, I know the basics, but I'd rather let the experts handle it, right?
I know, remember whenever they pushed us to become CompTIA certified or get that certification? I don't know if you ever went through that. I did that about 15 years ago. So I just know enough to be dangerous in that area.
Right. Yeah, everybody that came out, we all had to learn networking, print,
Oh, yeah.
glossary, scanning, entirely an entire new world for us.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
I remember it all. So how have you been doing the last 12 months general with sales? How the last 12 months could have been? Good?
Maybe not good, but decent considering the environment we've had to work in.
Right.
It was amazing. I think last year, at what we came out of that with is, people were still moving forward. We didn't know when this was going to end. People didn't know what kind of ramifications there might be. So they kept doing what they did day to day before COVID. This year has been a little bit different. Now I think there's more fear into our customers or our prospects because they've seen what has been forced upon us in the last 12 months. And now they're afraid it might be even worse the second time around. So they're kind of a little bit more reluctant, I think, to do anything right now, just because they don't know. Right. So last year, like I said, it was a decent year for me. I kept considering everything and working remotely. I can't complain at all. This year, the first part of the year started off pretty decent, and then it's kind of the last 6 weeks has been pretty dry.
That's actually what I saw the last 6 weeks. I had a good start to the beginning of the year, a decent second quarter, and the third quarter fell off the face of the earth so far.
I know, it's just strange. I mean, and it has to be, if we look at the different demographic areas where you're at, where I'm at, the only common denominator we have is COVID or the pandemic. So I just feel like businesses are fearful of what's coming next.
Right. Well, I had some thoughts about this, and at least in what I'm thinking about in New Jersey is that so many business owners and people and employees and staff were locked down for so long, remote for so long. And a lot of us didn't take the vacations we were supposed to, didn't take the days off we were entitled to. And basically everybody just said this summer, you know what, I'm taking off. We're putting stuff on the back burner. We're going to take our time, and we'll take a wait and see. And hopefully in September, we'll be back to normal again.
Well, I've got my fingers crossed that it works out that way.
Same here. Same here. So during COVID, did you do anything differently to find net new clients? Did you change up from your traditional prospecting?
No, I think I still use the traditional prospecting, but I think the fact that you couldn't travel and you were forced to work remotely, you couldn't get in to see folks. I found that I was able to generate more calls and more touches just because I didn't have, and my commute isn't a long commute, but when you get to the office and then you get distracted with conversations and everything going on in the hallways or whatever, at the end of the day, you lose a couple of hours. Well, working remotely from home, you've gained that time back. And I was able to concentrate more on, reaching out via phone or via email. And, sometimes people really wanted to talk to you for a change because You mentioned in one of your podcasts or one of your Zooms last year how I believe you were sending out emails and you just, it was something to the effect of just checking in to see how you're doing. You know, it wasn't a sales approach. It was a concerned partner approach. And I started doing that as well, and it worked. And I got responses where if I had been calling to say, hey, how's your copier doing? They wouldn't return the call. So,
right. Interesting. Yeah. And very, very, very true. And we also saved all of that time from not traveling back and forth to accounts.
exactly.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I feel like things are slow for me right now where they weren't last year, is because I feel when you get to rolling and you're putting machines out there, sometimes you get busy and tied up in the paperwork aspect. And now that we can go out and follow those up, it does take away from your prospecting time. And then the longer you've been in the business, the more accounts you have to take care of. And
Correct.
I personally make them a priority over prospecting. And I know that's not always the way you should do it, but I want to take care of who I've already earned the business for.
Absolutely correct. I do the same thing. Somebody emails me or calls me if I'm working on existing client and I'm not working on existing client already, it's how can I help?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I think that's what's allowed. And I mean, I know that's what's allowed me to continue doing this for 28 years is just the fact that you build those relationships because you do stop what you're doing and make sure they get taken care of. Whereas a lot of the times the competition doesn't do that because the salesperson that sold them their machine isn't there any longer.
Right.
And they can't get any answers or didn't get any answers. And so when you finally got that business, you want to make sure you keep it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So anything different now? Well, I was going to say a couple of meetings ago, I was saying we're in a post-COVID environment, but with the way things are going recently, is there anything different you've been doing in prospecting this year compared to last year?
Can't say there's really anything different. I've, you know, as you say, you're always prospecting. So I've spent some time trying to just look back at the history, you know, over the last 4 years to see what type of business I got in the month of July, just to see if I need to focus on those type of accounts, to see if there's any type of trends or anything that I might be able to piggyback onto. So far, really haven't found anything. It's like you mentioned, whether they're not in the office or what. I mean, they're just not responding to emails. You're leaving a lot of voicemails, and I'm not getting any feedback. So
Right.
it's you got to do it, but sometimes at the end of the day, it's a lot of negative feedback and not anything positive.
Right. So we all go through the same thing, just in different areas. So,
Oh, yeah.
So when working with net new accounts, and I'm asking everybody this question, is there is like, do you have a Midas touch? Like, so that will always, something you can say or make a statement that will get you that appointment with the client? Something that's worked more than others over the years?
No, I think I've found for the most part, the new business it's a lot of social networking and engineering. It's because you're involved with somebody they know, and you know, it's mentioning that company name or that person's name, and they're going, oh, okay, I didn't know that you did business with them, type thing. But is there just been one statement that is going to guarantee me an appointment? No, I haven't figured that one out yet. But you know, as they say, it's a small world. Once you start mentioning customers' names or certain contacts, then that kind of opens up some doors that you don't always get open.
Very true. Is there any app or feature that you're trying to recommend to all of your clients?
Mm, No, I mean, we're using FM Audit as a tool to capture those meter readings, especially in a multi-machine placement, just because that's always been a complaint that people hate having to get the meter readings. And I
Right,
usually want to look at them and go, well, you should have been around when you had to get on your knees with a flashlight and open the door and find that little meter if you think it's bad now. So, but not anything specific. I mean, we've got document management software. We've got DocuWare. It's just, I think we're at a stage in my area in Louisville. We're, I think, a little bit behind on some of the technology as far as implementation. You've got small niches or communities or areas where there's companies that are very forward thinking. And then you've got the areas that are, well, we've always done it this way. And until you can get in front of them multiple times, you can't convince them there might be a better way to do it.
right.
So you just have to start planting those seeds and sending that information. And then one day they're all going to click and it happen at the same time. They go, oh, well, that makes sense. That's why she said I needed document management, or that's why DocuWare would be worth the investment, because it's going to allow me to do things that I needed 10 people to do before. Now I can do it with 7. So
Yeah, just keep beating that drum.
yes.
I'm doing the same thing with content and DocuWare and items like that. So for the question of the day, issues, hardware issues?
Well, yes. Of course, all the small machines are on back order for 6 weeks or longer. We're starting to see some issues with the bigger machines, your 60, 70 copy minutes. They're going into back order for 60 days or so. The mid-range color are going into back order, and then you can place an order expecting it to be on back order and it gets shipped the next day. So, which makes no sense to me, but we're seeing that happen as well. And it's just amazing. We've got the Ford truck plant here in Louisville, and there's Ford trucks sitting everywhere around this town, waiting on those microchips to come in. So it's crazy time. We've lost some deals because we couldn't get equipment.
Right.
And then we've dealt with Epson. We've got some back order situations with them where they were promised orders, so they were holding inventory for that order that never materialized, and then all of a sudden they have equipment. So
Right.
it's crazy, and it's just there are things that are back ordered in every industry. I don't care what it is. I have a counterpart, and I didn't realize that cinnamon was on back order.
Really?
You can't get cinnamon, and here we are going into fall. So what are we going to do?
No cinnamon.
No cinnamon. I mean, so if you go to the grocery and you see cinnamon and you want those hot toddies and those drinks this fall, you may want to grab some.
Yeah, I guess from what I've been hearing, it's all across our entire industry. A4s are extremely hard to get. A3s are a little bit better. You don't have to wait as long. And a couple people have said basically the manufacturers dedicated their chips more towards the A3 devices rather than the A4, because the A3s will get them more revenue.
Well, I'm sure that they made some decisions they probably regret doing right now. So, I mean, we all want to sell Cadillacs, but when they're all only in the market for that, small unit, you got to have it to sell. So.
Yep, learned a long time ago. Give them what they want.
Right? Oh yeah, exactly.
So how about MFP security? Has it come up? Are you talking with your clients about it? Since all MFPs are an endpoint on the network.
We've been talking about that and trying to make it a priority for the end users for about 3 years now, trying to get them to be conscious of it. And, so far, nobody seems to have really been too concerned about it. And I guess that's because they've not been hit with ransomware or whatever. I mean, once that happens, then,
All of a
you know, I'm
sudden
sure that'll change their whole outlook.
Mhm.
But right now, being the salesperson delivering this message, it's like they think I'm trying to sell them something they don't need. You know, unfortunately, you know, we get, in my area anyway, we get painted as used car salespeople trying to sell things that aren't necessarily needed in the office. But you know, I've tried to be proactive instead of reactive, because I'd rather be able to say, well, I tried to tell you about this, instead of being the one that didn't mention it to them. And then they, well, I didn't know you could do that.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah, absolutely correct. So how about, since the world has opened up and we can go out on appointments again, or how do you feel about, I mean, are you going to go back to pre-COVID where every single sales call you went on, you know, you got in a car and you went there, you met with the client, came back? Or now are you rethinking that and kind of thinking maybe, hey, I'll go out the first time, but maybe we do the rest of the meetings by virtual?
well, I'm kind of letting the customer or the prospect dictate that. Me personally, I think it's always better to be in front of them, and the more times you can be in front of them, the more of an impression that you can make. Had an appointment earlier this afternoon, and you know, we went in, we met across the conference room table. We didn't shake hands or anything, but you know, if I had to go back and they allowed me to come back 3 more times, I'd be there, because I think you're just concreting your relationship when you can be in front of that person and establish a bond. I don't think you can do that remotely. I mean, yes, you can accomplish some tasks, but it's kind of like texting. You don't, when you're just doing everything remote, you lose that interaction where you can see their facial expressions and you hear the tone of their voice and you see their body language. Remote doesn't give you that.
Correct. Yep. Doesn't allow you to see what's in their room, what's in their office. It doesn't allow you to develop that thread of commonality as to what do we have in common that could help us have a better relationship, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And you know, they may be old school, but you know, I'm going to leave this industry doing it that way.
Awesome. Now, if you could add one feature to a copying machine, what would you add?
You know, I wish, that's a question I've heard you ask before. And, you know, I kind of feel a little bit remiss because I do my own training as well. And since we've been in a COVID world for 1.5 years, I haven't had that many opportunities to get in front of the customer and actually train on the machine.
Right.
And when I started doing wide format, I mean, I literally spent a week using the machines in a production environment. And that helped me tremendously. And I think I've kind of lost a little bit because I haven't been the end user. I haven't been in front of them. I haven't listened to what they say. So I don't have a quick answer to that, but I'm sure there's some feature that, you know, more automation might be the thing, you know, with the apps and the technologies that's out there. Why couldn't that screen be split a little bit? And when they're doing the setup of their job from a copy environment, it's actually showing an animated workflow.
Okay.
I mean, younger people are more into the animation side of things than us old folks are, so to speak. You know, we know where the buttons are and the squares are, and they're used to seeing a visualization of what's going on.
Right. Or maybe even a bigger screen than what we have already.
Yeah, that wouldn't hurt. That's probably the biggest drawback, I think, with the Epson on their wide format is the screen is so small after I've gotten used to the Ricoh,
right,
that I've said, you know, needs to be a little bit bigger.
Mm-hmm. So one of the other questions I've asked everybody is, do you have a cool short story about selling?
No, I don't really have a cool short story. Probably the funniest thing ever
Okay,
happened was, when I first came into sales, they, of course I was selling wide format, and then they gave me the vertical of print for pay.
right,
So, and that's a different market in itself, dealing with just print for pay accounts. And I'll never forget, I had an account, and this was in the early days. I mean, it was a black and white, early days of digital. And he felt like the paper was retaining too much moisture.
right,
And you know how some of these print shops are, they're not ventilated, and I'm sure it was drawing moisture, so it was jamming. So this guy decides to mount a heat shrink hair dryer that he used to wrap his packages with. He mounted it to the side of the copier to dry the paper as it's going, because this is when it had to come out of the tray, make the paper path, and then into the machine. He
right,
thought if he mounted that there, it would dry that paper before it entered into the paper path.
right.
Melted the whole side of the copier.
Oh, Lord.
So, and then he tried to say it was our fault. So I'm like, no, I'm afraid that's not covered under the maintenance contract, sir. So
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think so. I mean, and wide format, some of the areas that my first wide format sale was to Remington, the gun manufacturer, which that was kind of cool. But then like the next one I was sold to a truss manufacturer that happened to have their offices in the top of a dairy barn. And we had to carry this thing up the loft steps to get it up
Right,
to their offices. So, I mean, we've actually put the wide formats on second story office space where they didn't have an elevator that would accommodate it. And we put it on a skid, and we've got a forklift, and there I've got this wide format up in 15 feet in the air. So, I mean, when you sit and you look back, there's been a lot of things that have just been crazy, that what you've accomplished. And, as they say, where there's a will, there's a way.
absolutely. I agree. So what piece of knowledge would you like to impart to anybody who's just gotten into this industry? What could you tell them?
Well, I'm going to revert back to my own experience, and by using the equipment, and because I came on board strictly for the wide format in the beginning, and I went and I ran the equipment. I knew the machine inside and out, and that helped me more in a sales environment than somebody that's just reading the sales information guide. You've got to know what your product can do and how it can benefit your customer. And sometimes you don't always get that knowledge by just flipping through the brochure. And I think it shows when you're trying to be sincere, when you get in front of that customer, it shows that you've just read the verbiage on the back of the page.
Yeah.
And if you're going to stay in this industry for the long term, you've got to build that relationship from day one, and don't let yourself get painted as somebody that's just a fly by night and they won't be here 6 months, or when I get ready to update this machine, they're not going to be around. So just, take the time to learn the equipment, take the time to use it. And I think that helps all of us. I mean, especially as we're getting into new softwares, paper cut. From a salesperson run over to the copier and pick up my print job, that's great. But now that I have to enter that code, I'm not so happy about it. But it also helps me explain to the customer why it's beneficial to them. So just know your hardware, know what it's capable of.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And how many times did we go back and actually read the entire product manual, right? Not the brochure, the product manual.
Oh, trust me. Yeah. I mean, and that's where we're lucky that we have basically grown up with these machines and have seen the migration. And you have the new ones that come in, they don't know the history. We've been able to absorb the changes and react to them. I'm not so sure, somebody new coming into this industry, they've got a lot to learn to be able to present the products, I think, in an effective manner.
Yeah. And a reason why I think the manufacturers need to simplify our industry. It's just too overwhelming, too many products, too many machines, too many options. Simplify it, make it easy for the next. People still want to print. Make
Right.
it easy, make it easier for them to print, make it easier for them to buy. So
I know the Epson product, I don't know if you've looked at the small Epsons, but honestly, I realize they're inkjet, but as a convenience printer, and especially in the pandemic world, I literally took that thing home, unboxed it, had it set up for printing, scanning, scanned to my Gmail, scanned to my work email in less than 15 minutes. I mean, it was so simple. I was blown away. I could never have done that with a Ricoh device or a Lexmark device.
right.
So, I think you're right. The industry as a whole needs to make some changes. And there are some manufacturers that are starting to realize that, and they're taking those steps.
Yep. So Renita, that's it. We're done. I'd like to thank you very, very much for your time. And hopefully we'll be able to meet again sometime in the near future.
Well, John should have us come down to Florida, to Jacksonville. We'll go down and see John. I've known John for a long time. He and I went to school for one of the Ricoh wide format training classes 100 years ago.
John Anderson.
Yes.
Yes. The belly to belly man.
Yeah, that's him.
John's a great guy.
Yes, he is.
Great guy. And John and I talk quite frequently. And of course, it's always about wide format. So,
All right.
All right. So I'm just going to, again, thank you for your time. I appreciate